welcome to the FarmEd podcast. I'm Kate Henderson, agriculture lead at FarmEd, and today I'm delighted to be talking to Alex Philmore from the Farming Community Network. So I'd like to start by asking Alex, can you explain to our listeners what the Farming Community Network is?
Absolutely. Thanks very much for having me today. So the Farming Community Network is a charity and voluntary organisation that exists to support the farming community during difficult times, but also in order to focus on the future in a positive way, adapt to change. And we really help people who are perhaps going through difficult times in the farming community and help them find that positive way forward.
Something that the Farming Community Network have been doing is developing modules that can be delivered to people to help them understand how to help people who might be struggling with their mental well-being. We ran a course here last year that covered those two modules. Would you be able to explain a little bit more about them?
Yeah, so we're increasingly getting approached by organizations and farmers obviously in our industry who are recognizing that there are a lot of challenges. Perhaps some of the changes and transition we're seeing in our sector at the moment is putting on additional pressure. And as a result, they're having increasingly difficult conversations with other farmers or members of their families if they farm themselves. And so what we've done is we've developed a module based on the insights from our volunteer network. So that's through the calls that we deal with on our helpline, but also the casework that we do. That really goes into how to have those difficult conversations with members of our farming community, how to support people that might be going through a difficult time, but also to feel more confident in having conversations around mental health and well-being, because there is still that stigma in the agricultural sector, and we know that a lot of people still have that stoicism and they're perhaps hesitant to ask a charity for help or open up to people. And so we're very much encouraging people to have conversations and look out for themselves and the people around them.
It's interesting that you say that there is still that stigma, especially in this sector around mental health. Are you finding that that's getting any better? Are you finding that people are more willing to talk about their problems?
Well, we're regularly blown away by the number of organisations reaching out to us, wanting to work with us. And when we're at agricultural events and shows, I think gone are the days where people will see a charity stand and they will kind of deliberately turn around and walk the other way. You know, we used to find that maybe 5 or 6 years ago sometimes, but now we're having people coming up to the stand wanting to engage with us. And there's myriad reasons why that would be the case, but I think there is a normalization of conversations around mental health and well-being, which is great. I don't know if that suggests that the figures are actually getting much better. This is a difficult sector and a lot of pressures are outside of farmers' control. So there's a lot of that uncertainty. But we very much advocate within our charity for a positive mindset and being open to change and looking at your options. And we work with a range of organizations and experts that can support farmers in doing that.
What sort of thing, I don't know if you know this, but what sort of things are you finding that people are struggling with a lot at the moment? I know bovine TB is a big issue, changes in farm payments. Are there any sort of things that you're seeing recurring a lot at the moment?
Yeah, so of course, the two areas that you've mentioned there. So TB remains a constant threat for a lot of farmers, particularly those in high-risk areas that are having to do regular TB testing. And we regularly speak to farmers that tell us how stressful that is, particularly those that unfortunately would get a positive reactor. We deal with farmers that are worried about the future financially. Farmers increasingly having to diversify their business to remain profitable. Farmers perhaps struggling with labour shortages. The weather this year has been incredibly challenging. But the big three issues that we regularly hear about on our helpline are concerns around mental well-being, financial pressures, and succession and other family relationship issues, which can be very, very difficult on farms. We deal with everything from disputes and disagreements between parents and their children, siblings, parents and grandparents, you know, all these sorts of dynamics on family farms, disagreements about the future of the business, etc. So we hear everything, and every case that we deal with is obviously difficult, and every case we deal with is often more complex than it initially appears. And the presenting issue is very rarely the full story. So it might be someone reaches out to our charity because they're having a bad day, or they've been out on the tractor for a long time, or there's been a particular stressor that's just pushed them into a state where they think, I need to speak to someone. But then as we're talking to that person, we're peeling back the layers, and there's usually various other factors as well that are causing that person stress and anxiety.
And if anyone is in one of these situations, either they're struggling themselves, or they can see that someone they know or that they've had contact with is struggling and needs some help, what's the best way? How can they find that help?
Well, I think the first thing would be saying that we often people reach out to charities when they're in a crisis point. So people would actually wait until their situation has gotten really, really bad before they would ask a charity for help. And that's not just the case in the farming sector. That's the case for a lot of sectors, but in farming in particular, I think there is that element of, we're farmers, we're problem solvers, we're resilient. We can, whatever the issue is, we can find a way through it, and we don't necessarily need to ask anyone for help. But acknowledging that sometimes there are situations where we might need that extra support is a good first step. And then once we've recognized that actually, whatever the issue is, I can't deal with it by myself and I need some support from someone, then there's charities like the Farming Community Network out there that can be that first port of call for you. So FCN has a confidential helpline, which is 03000 111 999. We also operate an e-helpline, which is help@fcn.org.uk. And when you reach out to charities like FCN, particularly FCN in this case, we are farming people. We speak the language of farming, and we are here to listen to whatever the issue could be. It could be a personal challenge. It could be a business-related issue. But you'll be rest assured that when you reach out to our charity, you'll be speaking to someone who understands farming life. Our volunteer network are either current farmers, or they've worked in farming, or they've worked in other agricultural roles. It could be veterinary, it could be land agents, all sorts of different roles. And you're speaking to someone there who understands the pressures. And it might be that initial call with that person is all you need to get out whatever's on your mind. And then it might be, you carry on. But it could be that you need that additional support, in which case we've got teams of local caseworkers around England and Wales that can come to the farm, come and sit around the table with you, go through what the issues are to try and find some solutions or ways forward.
And I think that's really important, what you're saying about the people that you're going to speak to when you ring up, know about farming, know about the industry, because I think there's so many things that are very specific to farming, worries and pressures that wouldn't apply to any other industry. So I really like that. You can actually speak to people that know what you're going through. And what about if you know a family member, a colleague, a client that is struggling, but they don't realise that they need the help? Is there any way of supporting the people that have noticed it but don't know what to do next?
Yeah, so the training that we deliver, one of the things that we factor into there is the flags, or the red flags to look out for, or how to spot the signs that someone may be struggling. And there's various things that we might look out for. It could be changes in behavior, changes in sleep pattern, changes in diet, and there's various other things we might observe. If we are worried about someone, what we need to do is we need to be there for that person. We need to make sure that we're actually actively listening to what the issues are. And not making them feel guilty about the way that they're feeling. But we need to encourage them to reach out to organizations like the Farming Community Network. There is an element that people do need to help themselves. We can't force people to do things they don't want to do. And as a charity, we can't cold call people. We can't reach out to people without their consent. But what we try and do is we try and normalize the conversation. FCN helps hundreds of farmers and farming families every year. There's lots and lots of people that are probably speaking to us that you wouldn't know are speaking to us because it's all confidential. But we really say to people, look, there's no stigma attached to reaching out to a charity. That is what we are here for. We help lots and lots of people. And we've got loads and loads of examples of people that say, if it wasn't for FCN, I wouldn't still be farming today. Because of you guys, I'm back on track. I know what I'm doing, and I'm continuing to farm with my family. So we really just think it's important that people take that proactive approach and don't bury their heads in the sand.
And you're present at quite a few agricultural events, aren't you? There's often an FCN stand there, so people can always walk by, pick up some information, have a little informal chat as well.
Absolutely. You know, we're present at loads of different places. So yes, we have stands at agricultural shows and events. We're also at lots of livestock markets. We regularly attend meetings by all sorts of stakeholders. Could be the Rural Payments Agency, could be DEFRA, could be the National Farmers Union. We try and get out as much as we can because we appreciate that a lot of farmers, there's not that many opportunities to get off farm. And so we need to go to where the farmers are. But we have the great thing that we see, particularly more in recent years, is that we have advocates for FCN across loads and loads of businesses. Could be agronomy firms, could be dealerships of machinery, where we have people within those organizations that know about the charity, and they might include our contact details in their mail outs or their bulletins, or they might have some of our literature actually within their offices, so that if anyone goes to one of their offices, they can pick up a leaflet or they can pick up a helpline card. So we very much rely on the industry supporting the work that we do and helping to get that message out there, because we're a growing charity, but we're a relatively small team. And so anyone who can help raise awareness of our charity and the support we provide is really, really helpful.
And I know a lot of businesses nowadays are nominating people from their team to go on mental health first aid courses, as well as the standard first aid courses that we've all been doing. What I really liked about the modules you delivered is that there are parts that are specific to the rural community, which I think is really helpful. Are you finding that there's quite a bit of uptake through rural businesses because of how it's tailored to the people that are going to be meeting?
Absolutely. So we went with a sort of logic when we developed our training, which is that we have a lot of knowledge within our charity from our volunteer network, from our staff network. You know, we're speaking with farmers day in and day out. We're supporting farmers through pretty difficult times quite a lot of the time. And we see the success of those conversations. We get those people into a better place than before they came to us. So we use that knowledge to develop our training. And because we're farming people within the farming community network, it is very much targeted at the farming community. And anyone who does the training will be able to see that. I think there is absolutely a place for those more sort of general sort of mental health and well-being type presentations and awareness sort of training opportunities, but we are targeting this at the agricultural sector. And in answer to your question, yes, uptake has been very, very high. We've got a backlog going into next year, or certainly in 2023, but going into 2024, we've got loads of bookings. And now we need to make sure we have enough trainers to deliver upon those bookings, because there's a big uptake. But so we view that as a positive, as a charity, that lots of organizations are inviting us to come into their businesses. But it also does highlight that there is a real need for this, which does obviously imply that there's issues within our sector that we need to address.
If anyone is interested in doing these modules, and if you are sort of from a smaller company or on an individual basis, a little bit of a plug, but we are hosting FCN at FarmAid in February to do those 2 modules, and there are still a few places available. As I said, we did it last year and it was brilliant. I sat in on it and I've learned so much from it that I've managed to sort of use going forward. And I think the key messages from talking to Alex are that it's good you need to get help before it gets to a crisis point, and just knowing those signs and knowing those red flags, as you called them, can really make a difference.
You're absolutely right there. And to put this into perspective, I was at an agricultural show earlier this year, and a lady came over to the FCN stand, and she said, it's great that you guys are here. Really, really useful to know. If I was ever in a crisis, and she used that word, she said, if I was ever in a crisis, it's good to know that you're here. Of course, I've never been in a crisis, but if I ever was, I would reach out to FCN. And then as I was speaking to her, it transpired that she had been evicted from our home. She'd gone through a divorce. She was living in a caravan. She had no real income at that time. And for that particular person, she still didn't view her situation as being bad enough that she should speak to a charity. So I think it's about trying to change that mindset of, like, if you got in touch with us sooner, we could have helped you through all of that. It was obviously a very hard time for her, really emotional time for her. We are here to walk with the farming community. And ideally, we do that before things have gotten really bad. But we're here for everyone, of course. But don't be afraid to speak to charities like FCN. As I say, it is what we're here for, and we really do care.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Alex. It's such an important topic, and thank you to you and all of FCN for doing this brilliant work.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing everyone in February for the training session.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye.